are skills as important as they used to be in CrossFit?
Oh, I mean, this year they probably weren't, but does that mean they won't be next year?
Yeah. I don't know. You actually changed my mind on this because you said that you needed to have a muscle up to get into the quarterfinals.
For the men,
Only for the guys. Yeah. Oh, okay.
But each year the level is raising, so I don't think it'll be like, you still want to chase that goal if you're a female, because maybe next year or in 3 years that line will be drawn and you'll be left behind in the dust.
I still think that they're the most important thing. And in fact, when I do an assessment on an athlete, the first thing I'm looking at is not strength or their endurance, but do you have the skills? And if they have the skills, they probably have at least a base level of strength. And then we can just kind of figure out from there.
Why do you pick that first?
Because the sport over the last 12 years has always tested at least one or two skills in the open and now in quarterfinals. And even if there aren't huge separators in those things, like ring muscle-ups are at the end of the workout, so even if you just get there, maybe you qualify or move on, having that ability is going to move you up the leaderboard so much more than just having an extra 2 seconds on your 2K row or a little bit more endurance. And even if you're really enduring, if you don't have the skills, you can't express that endurance because you're going to be bottlenecked by that said skill.
Yeah, I'm with Brandon here. Like, as an example, let's say somebody's doing a power clean, but they lift their butt way up off the ground and they bend their arms really early and they don't have that skill refined. No matter how strong you get them, they're not able to express that power in the movement. So everything that you do, how you move doing the thing and what the level and competence of the skill kind of amplifies both your strength and your endurance. So to me, like, I call it movement, but movement, skill, understanding how to do a skill, how to move fast is like the most important, but also the least sexy. People are like, oh, I don't want to spend 30 minutes trying to figure out how my knees track properly on a pistol or how to gain tension in the right spot. But it's important if you want to be able to do pistols when you're tired in a workout.
Yeah, if you don't address those things early on in your athletic development, then your ceiling for development is just going to be so low.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. And most people just go into the CrossFit gym. They say they want to, make semifinals, and they want to make quarterfinals. And so they keep doing CrossFit style workouts, which is awesome. It's a good way maybe to build strength or maybe to build some conditioning base. But if you're staring at the rings because you can't do them and you're always having to modify, or you can't do toes to bar well because you don't know how to compress, or you can't do the pistol max to your point, then at some point you have to learn those skills to graduate to the next level of the sport. But what you see is people that 3 or 4 years are just doing hard metcons. They're signing up for programs that are just doing hard metcons with no scaling options or no development options for those athletes. And over 4 years, you're like, I moved up nowhere in the sport because I can't do those things. So Mia, that's I think a good example of, like, if you want your ceiling to get raised so you actually can meet the potential that you have, then you have to work on those skills first.
Yeah, the workout one I'm going back to the open because I'm thinking most people that are focused as like, hey, most of my training's building skills, probably an earlier athlete. Like, if you can't do a handstand, then you're not going to be able to do handstand push-ups. And like, just if you can't do some of the basic things first, you can't really even conceptualize being a better athlete. But in that process of developing skills, if you're focused on, damn it, I lost my train of thought there.
You were going to talk about workout one from the
workout one. Yeah. So there's no skills really in workout one. It's mostly capacity.
What was workout one?
Workout one
dumbbell
was
snatch, burpee.
Single arm dumbbell snatch and burpees over. Then workout two was a deadlift and a row, which aren't super. You still need to learn those skills, but not super hard. Double unders, it was a huge bottleneck for people.
Yeah,
so that's an
important skill.
Very important skill. And then workout three, obviously the chest bars and the bar muscle ups are skills that people need to have to be able to excel in the sport. So 3 major skills impacted basically 2 scores in the open. So even this year in the open, which was a less skill year, I would think everyone would probably agree it was more capacity driven this year than maybe previous years. It's still important in the testing body.
It's only capacity driven if you have those skills, even if they are basic. Like, high-level athletes would consider a double under, a chest to bar, or even a bar muscle-up pretty basic skill. But you can't express your capacity if you can't move through double unders well.
And then the next step of that is that if you want to have the highest level of capacity, you have to be efficient in those skills. So like if I'm doing double unders, for those that follow along, you can go back and watch the throwdown workout that Mike and I just demoed.
Yeah, beautiful double.
I think you were just trying to flex your biceps.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. But here's a perfect example. I don't do double unders. That's the first time I probably have done them in 6 months or something like that. And that's not an excuse. It's just I don't train CrossFit. I do a lot of other stuff, strength, whatever. But you could see clearly how bad I am at double unders. Can I still do that skill? Yes.
No, hold on. Not bad. How you're only
compared
in comparison.
to the other stuff that you're
Travis
really good at.
or even Mike in that workout.
Yeah.
Your ceiling is going to be lower because your form sucks.
Yeah, exactly. So my form is bad. And so now what's going on is I'm using more effort per rep than Mike is or Travis or anyone that's good at that. So if I really wanted to improve my capacity at that workout or anything with double unders, I would want to fix that skill. So it's not just can I get all of these movements, the handstand push-ups, the toe to bar, the double unders, the handstand walking. It's then the next step is can I have good endurance in those? So it is still a capacity thing, but the first step is building the skill itself.
Yeah, you build the skill, then you kind of build the capacity with the skill that you have. And then kind of the next level is like, all right, well, now you need to refine it to the nth degree. Like you might need to go from, okay, I build this strength. Let's take a muscle up as an example. I build the strength to do a pull up and a dip and just basic swinging. I do drills and spotted drills and I get a muscle up. It's like, all right, cool. That was a huge mountain that you just climbed. But you get to the summit and you realize that you're just at the base of a new mountain that you have to climb. Yeah, you do one. And then you learn how to string sets and it's a new skill to start layering on that next level. But you're generally not doing that when you're like at max levels of failure yet. You're just building a little skill resilience. Then there's like another level where you put it in metcons. And then if you're at somebody like Travis, he can do them. He still can do muscle ups. He can still do big sets. But as he's peaking for a competition, it's a very important skill for him to work on relative to the field. So he does additional skill work, even as an advanced athlete, long ring holds, swings on the rings, big sets just by themselves, because it's a area of focus for him, or like maybe CrossFitters would call it a weakness. I don't want to use that word, but he still needs to work on it in a skill format. So every level of athlete needs skill work on movement, but I feel like only the beginners know they have to do it because that's like, well, you can't do it.
Yeah, it's a clear limitation.
I'm not weak. I just have a bigger area of focus.
That's the way we should. That's how she would say it now.
I'm getting soft, I think.
You really are, man. You used to be like, dude, you suck.
It's I'm changing and evolving.
All right, so let's kind of break down the different levels then, because there are all different types of athletes that listen to our podcast or that are in some of our programs. And me, I want to kind of start with like the athlete that comes into one of our programs, let's say the intermediate path in TDD Compete, and they do not have the skills. They don't have bar muscle ups, ring muscle ups, handstand walking. Where would you start them in the off season, and how does that progress throughout the year?
Yeah, so if you do not have the skills at all, something we did this year to address that even more is we set two paths. There's, can you do the strict movements in order to be able to build your gymnastic skills? So can you do strict pull-ups? Can you do strict handstand push-ups? How good are your strict dips? If that is a huge weakness for you, then I would push you towards the strength bias path, which this year has a lot of gymnastic strength in it.
We talked about this in the strength podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
Save you a little bit of breath there.
I'll move on. If you have that strength and it's really, I need to learn the skills, then we run what we call the Got None programs, which are purely technical skill work. The goal is to get you from not being able to do a ring muscle up to being able to do a ring muscle up. Simple as that. It's not under fatigue. It's it repeats every cycle, and you continue to do those progressions basically until you get that skill.
Right. So if I am someone that comes in that has the strength, and when you say the technique work, what does that look like for like a ring muscle up?
Sure. So if you watch the Dude Learns Ring Muscle Up video.
That's what I was going to ask about. I wanted to know how much of the actual skill breakdown was in that video. I feel bad. I didn't watch it.
It's very similar to what you would see in the Got None progression. But yeah, we're working on the swing. I call them the swing steps. And my goal with skill work towards a skill is for you to always understand what the drill is building into. If we're learning the arch position in the swing, why do you need to be in that position? And if you feel yourself go into this position, why is that wrong? And what do you need to do to correct it? I think that that's a really important thing for people to be focusing on when they're going from 0 to 1, because it gives you the tools in the future when you're at that level where you're able to do them, and now we're layering in fatigue and they're starting to break down. You know why they're starting to break down. You can understand, when I get tired, I'm not using my hip drive at the right spot and I'm getting my feet too high. And you know that because you repeated these steps and you understand all of the steps of the ring muscle up. So that's the focus of the skill work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly add on to that too. Yeah, not a follow-up, just like an encouragement, not only for the athlete that doesn't have the skill, but someone that wants to go back and refine that in the off season. I will use that with athletes, or if let's say I wanted to go and compete again, I would do those swing steps first to get the technique again. I could go out there right now and do a pretty big set of ring muscle ups, but my technique's not going to be very good. So I have that skill, but I need to refine that technique. It goes back to, can I get it back to where I'm efficient at the movement and using less effort per rep? So for those that maybe have those skills that just want some touches on it, that's also in the program. It's really a nice place to start.
Yeah, any skill that you learn, there's like generally a step-by-step process, or there's constraints you put on a movement. So if somebody's trying to teach you how to do double unders and pull your hands in, one easy way to do it is to put constraints by putting boxes next to you and breaking the movement down into a smaller.
Really hard, by the way.
Yeah, it is very challenging. Or you're learning a muscle up. It's this huge complex thing with multiple movements, multiple points of extension, flexion, timing of pulls. It's very hard unless somebody's a super high level athlete that already has some high coordination to be like, hey, just jump up and do this and show them the whole movement. Generally speaking, you have to break things down. So like to teach timing, like the nuance of how you jump up to the rings, where your body is, when you're swinging, where your feet go where, they help kind of ingrain some of those smaller subconscious things in you so that when you learn the skill, you're like, all right, the big things kind of click together because you broke it down into all these little micro pieces and micro steps. And you see that everywhere, like barbell cycling or weightlifting, they'll do snatch pulls and muscle snatches, and they break down the movement into smaller component steps. So that's kind of what the skill programs are designed to help people learn.
Yeah. So what, Max, what about the higher level athlete? Because those skills still matter to them. And let's say someone that did the quarterfinal workouts and they got to quarterfinal workout 3 and they went through it relatively well, but they didn't finish the ring muscle ups and they're looking at their scores and like, I want to make semifinals next year. They still need to improve those things. So what would you do for that level of athlete?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of options. I feel like refining the little things that you talked about, but I think taking some of those skills and making them your warm-ups, or what sometimes is a really good opportunity for people is after you work out, like you do a workout that has muscle ups in it and you need extra work, you do some extra work after and volume accumulation and technique while you're under fatigue. Like you just did that whole workout. Now build resilience to your technique holding up while under fatigue. So there's like extra credit options you can do that just adds extra volume to it, or skill-based programs that are designed not necessarily for what she is breaking down is more technique, but it's being able to do huge volumes of them. So you can do double unders into muscle ups, rowing into muscle ups, rest and repeat that, and build your ability to hold your skill under fatigue. And I think that's kind of what we talked about, the step by step. Like, got your beginner, learn the skill, then start to do a little more of the skill. Now do the skill under bigger levels of fatigue, and then like, all right, now test it at full speed in a competition setting.
Yeah. So for the athlete, Mia, that let's say gets from 0 to 1, and then they want to express more capacity, kind of to your point, Max, where they're going to that next level. What does it look like for you when you're writing a program, and how would you teach that athlete to go from 1 to maybe 3, then to 5, and then hopefully to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10?
Yeah. So to go from 1 to more than 1 can be as simple as continuing to do the skill progressions and layer them in from the top down. So if you're doing you learn the ring swing steps, you get to the top of the ring muscle up. Now can you let yourself come down and hit the steps again from the top? And that's how I'll get someone from 1 to 2. And usually what I'll see with people who have spent time doing the swing steps, learn the positions, basically drilled it to the point where they can't do it any other way. It's so ingrained in them. Getting from 1 to 3 to 5 is a pretty smooth process.
Yeah. 1's the hardest.
Yeah,
for sure.
But the people who get from 0 to 1 really fast without understanding why they got from 0 to 1 have a harder time getting from 1 to 5.
And this was going back to the double under thing. That was me.
You're
like, I just figured out. Yes,
that's me.
And I think a lot of people that listen that just like naturally became pretty good at the sport early on. They learned all these skills, but they didn't learn the actual technique behind them. So like they're slinging themselves up there on muscle ups or just pulling themselves aggressively with bar muscle ups. Yeah. It's like you could be so much better if you took a step back, so you could take 2 steps forward.
Yeah, it's that like why of the skill work that gets skipped over when you are blessed with strength or basic coordination, but you don't really know what you're doing to get yourself into that position. And you're going to hit a point where you're failing them under fatigue, whatever level that is for you, and you're not going to know how to get past that hump.
Yeah. I've actually noticed this a lot in male athletes that have a sporting background, can learn gymnastics for CrossFit pretty quickly to just get the skills, but oftentimes they're way less efficient than girls that excel in the sport because there's naturally a little bit less upper body strength relative to body weight. And I think also too, growing up, they're not really encouraged that often to do a lot of upper body strength work or be in sports that challenges it other than the gymnasts. So what I see in the sport is actually the girls have better fatigue resilience and do pretty big sets and maintain their technique. Guys kind of like, even Noah's great at muscle ups, but like if you take him to true failure, he'll start like kind of chicken winging the last rep or pushing himself up. And he's probably like one of the most efficient male gymnasts in the sport.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I always get is like, okay, I understand I'm going to do the skill work. I'll do it for a while. Okay, now I have one. I'm getting kind of bored and I want to do some CrossFit again. I want to start throwing those in. How do you integrate that into a training program, Mia, for the people that have a couple, but it's like, I want to do a metcon. I want to do this 20-minute AMRAP.
Stop. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
He played in the strength podcast. He played dumb like that athlete. And he's like, how would you deal with me if I did just want to do metcons? And I was like, I hate you.
I mean, that's just not how you get better. And if you really want to improve in the sport, it's not like, oh, it's so unfair. I have to do skill work or I have to do a progression. Like, every sport that exists, it's not about just like scrimmaging. You know, there's always technical work. There's always the progressive work. So if you want to be an athlete, stop it. Just do what you need to do in order to get better. But what I think you need to do is follow. Gymnastics isn't different than a strength progression or a conditioning progression. You have to take steps. It's not you learn the skill and then you can just do them with thrusters and burpees and all these super high levels of fatigue and expect to just be able to continue to do them like that. That's just not how it works. So what I do with athletes is I'll take them through a progressive program where we're addressing increasingly higher levels of fatigue as the season goes on. So we'll start with basic, like say we're working on toes to bar. We get from, all right, you can do toes to bar, you can accumulate 50 reps. They all look perfect, not unbroken, but for quality, they all look perfect. We know that you know the swing steps of the toes to bar, the positions you need to be in. All right, now we're going to work on, can we do 5 or 10 sets of 5 unbroken with 10 seconds rest. And I know that sounds really basic, but that's where you start. And we're able to hold that technique under the fatigue of the movement itself. Once you have that down towards a certain volume and everything looks good, then we'll add in some aerobic fatigue where maybe we're running into toes to bar and we're practicing doing 5 shuttle runs into 10 unbroken toes to bar with a short rest and repeating that for X amount of sets and build that up until you can hold sets of 15 unbroken toes to bar. I'm just making this up. But once you have that down, then we'll move into maybe some like upper body fatigue into the toes to bar. So it's more interference of the movement. But what I'm not going to do is have someone learn toes to bar and then be like, all right, I want you to do 21, 15, 9, or 21, 15, 9, 15, 21 of thruster toes to bar. Have fun. Like you're just not going to get better that way.
It also ends up being way less dense and way less good training if you do. Like I watched even at the quarterfinal level, the elites went through that first round of workout 3. The first workout 3 in quarterfinals started with 10 kipping handstand push-up, 20 toes to bar back and forth.
For 3 rounds.
Yeah. For the elites, they were managing that work, going through it as fast as they could while not blowing their fatigue up for the later things. I watched more kind of quarterfinal level people, and there were a lot of people that were like at singles, almost have failure by toes to bar by the end of that 60 reps.
Sneaky dense.
Very dense back and forth. And what ended up happening is like, well, they got to singles where they were like falling off and then kind of jumping up into it with their feet behind them and swinging and doing one slow rep. And if you do all your training like that, you never build the ability to do 5 unbroken, rest 5 seconds and repeat to get through it. So you're almost training yourself to do poor technique and you never build your efficiency. So you almost need that kind of step-by-step process to build your ability to do proper reps while you're under fatigue.
I really like how you said that skill work is just like anything else. We like strength progressions or, endurance progressions. And it's so true. Like people don't get mad if it's, let's say 5-3-1 and you're starting with 65, 75, 85%. And they're like, cool, 65%. That's what I'm doing today. But 65% is nowhere near your max. Whereas people would always say like in gymnastics, I just want to go hard in the movement, but we're not saying I want to go do a 1RM every single day when I'm doing strength progression. So it's like, be patient with it and you'll build up to that point.
I think there are people that are not patient with their strength progression.
There are some, yeah, that's true.
But it's
less common,
more accepted. But yeah, if you can do a set of 3 unbroken ring muscle ups and you're doing a metcon that has rounds of 3 and you're mad that you're not hitting those, you're mad that you're not hitting your 1RM under like massive levels of fatigue in a metcon, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The other thing, this is kind of answering for me, even though you answered greatly, is what it means about the program creation is that when you're doing your metcons, they're just more simple. You taking the skills out of it and doing the skill work almost as like a strength or its own thing. And then instead of putting the toes to bar, the kipping handstand push-ups into the metcon, you put things in there that are not going to be bottlenecked, which also allows earlier level athletes to develop their conditioning base, which is important for the
now
sport.
With the open, especially if it's going to be low barrier to entry, you want those styles of workout, so you are building that conditioning base with a simple movement.
Yeah. So I mean, I do know you do that too. So even though I answered for you, I know that's how the programs are structured.
Yeah. Basically, I want the skill work. And when I say skill work, I don't just mean like the got none progressions that we talked about. It's the 5 toes to bar, shuttle run, like those kind of progressions too, it is hard breathing. It is hard training. It just looks different than a metcon, but that doesn't mean that you're not training hard.
Yeah. And you're getting better at that point too. I've found myself, like I do so much better. And I think working with all the different athletes over the years, people get better faster that way. It's just sometimes when you get into it, if you're used to only doing metcons, it seems a little boring or like monotonous. But within a couple of weeks, you see the fruits of your labor, and I think it turns over pretty fast.
Yeah.
Do you like doing skill work, Chris?
No, that's why I don't do it.
But Chris
that's a good question.
He doesn't expect to be a competitive athlete.
That's a great point.
But hold on. I have seen you do a lot of skill work on spike ball when you were into spike ball.
I wasn't doing any skill
You were
work.
doing skill work on your serves?
His wrist.
You weren't working on your serves?
Not really.
Yes, you were.
Yes, you were.
Chris
you
was
were
in there
out
hitting the wall.
Or you had a partner with you, and you guys would serve back to one another.
I was like bored waiting for people to come play the game. I wasn't doing skill work.
Chris is in there.
Fair enough.
But that's a good point, though. Seems like there's a lot of people like me who run into I don't want to do that. But then you get a lot of people who pay lip service saying they want to compete, they want to blah, blah, blah. You get to where the rubber meets the road and they tend to shy away and just double down on the metcons. Is there anything y'all could say as coaches on like that come to Jesus moment on how you got to either double down or do people just have to run into that brick wall? Because wouldn't you say that you were that for a while? No,
I don't think I was that. I think I just didn't know how to do those types of progressions. Like when I was coming up in the sport, at least I didn't know of that kind of training. All right. Well, I'm extremely non-sympathetic to the person that you just said. So my answer is, if you want to be better at CrossFit, you suck it up and do what you need to do. And if you're not doing those things, then you don't actually care about being better.
Yeah.
And sorry.
I'm kind of unsympathetic to it. Speaking of getting softer, I fired clients a lot back in the day. We'd go through intro calls and we'd set goals and all this stuff. And I'd send the initial assessment. And then based on in 2 weeks, their commitment to doing all the movement screens, filming it, whatever, I was like, hey, we're not on the same page in terms of you say you want to do this and you're not willing to do the work, then we're wasting both of our times. But I think it's really important to just have self-honesty, because I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't train to be good at competitive CrossFit, so I don't spend 5 hours a week doing skill work on muscle ups. I do fitness training version of CrossFit. I'm still squatting. I'm still doing conditioning, get my heart rate up. So I don't care. So there's no judgment to it. But when the hypocrisy is there where you're like, I'm really upset about my point placing. because I couldn't do a bar muscle up. And then you're like, well, how much work did you do on your bar muscle up in this off season? You had a year between these competitions, and people were like, well, I didn't really do any. I just did metcons. I'm like, all right, well then that's your answer. Like, you just need to do the work to be better at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you guys. I think we're probably all in the same boat, but there are options for those that don't want to do skill. And Chris, you and I talked about this in a recent podcast. Like, go do something else. Go do something. Chris and I go do fun things all the time.
Like the ruck.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm unsympathetic towards if you don't want to do that. That's totally fine. I agree with you. Like, take whatever approach you want to achieve the level of fitness that you want to be at. But if you say that you want to be better at the sport of CrossFit and that's important to you, and you are going to look at the leaderboard at the end of the year or whatever competition, and you're going to be upset about where you are, then I'm not saying.
Yeah, I think that's the problem is people get upset, and then Max, to your point, you look back and you're like, well, I didn't do anything for it. I just did a bunch of hard metcons because that's what was fun, and I wanted to do that. It's like, well, that's your answer right there. It's like you didn't put in the work, and so I do understand that. But if some people maybe come to the end of the season and they're like, you know what, I just don't want to dedicate that time. That's okay. Be honest with yourself and then move on. Fine. You know, like our TTD 60 program is perfect for that. There's all kinds of simple movements, fun conditioning, strength work. You'll have fun there, but don't expect yourself to get better without doing the skill work.
There is some freedom in it too, because I have competed in metcons where I was training for metcons, trying to be as good as I could. And then there have been times that I've competed in metcons where I knew, like, I'm just set up for failure. Like, I haven't done an actual metcon in 2 months, and I'm doing it with people that are doing it 5 days a week. Like, I know that I'm about to get slaughtered.
Yeah.
But when your expectations are low and you're honest with yourself, it's not as much of a sting. Like, you're not like, oh my God, I just dedicated a year to this and I'm still getting crushed. Like, it takes away some of the pressure, which can make competing a little bit more enjoyable again. So for that person, if you don't want to do skill work and you just want to find your kind of like your version of strength and conditioning and metcon construction that's fun, that keeps you engaged, that's okay. But just keep the expectations lower than when you're looking at the leaderboard.
Cool. Let's wrap it up with kind of a big picture of the different types of athletes, just a reminder and where people should be this time of the year. So we're just getting into the off season for most people. Quarterfinals finished. For those that don't have the skill, a great place to start, Mia, again, is
the intermediate path.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the skills at all, then definitely the intermediate path, follow the got none progressions. If you have all of the skills but one, we have the skill programs as one-off programs that you can add onto your daily training. So if it makes more sense for you to follow masters, but you need to learn ring muscle ups, you can always add that to it. But if overall you need to improve your skills, either 0 to 1 or it's just your major limitation and everything, then you should be in the intermediate path. We're starting off the year-long progression, which I kind of sloppily explained earlier, where we're doing.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.
Where we're doing the skills, starting with the technical work and then moving to increasing levels of fatigue that will lead into the open. So at this time of year, I always tell people that it's like the perfect time to start, because you're going to catch all of the progressions, and you're going to, if you stick with it, you're going to get a lot better at the thing that's holding you back.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. You just mentioned that, but it does progress throughout the year. So let's say you started now and you wrap around into 2025 when the open comes around, you are doing the CrossFit with those skills, because by that point, if you did it all year, you're going to have those skills.
For sure.
Maybe you're not doing 20 unbroken ring muscle ups, but if you can do 3, rest 20 seconds, do 3, you're going to do really well in the open that way.
Yeah, you can actually accumulate points on those workouts.
Totally.
Or less points.
Yeah, and then Max, for the athlete that maybe is bubble semifinals, or they're pretty good in quarterfinals, but they want to improve their skills, handstand walking, ring muscle ups, handstand push-ups, they got exposed in quarterfinal workout 3, where should they start?
Oh man, it's kind of a big question, because I feel like it ties into the other 2 buckets. Is how important is base level strength, base level endurance, and skill kind of all in combination? I think for most of those bubble athletes now, there's like 1 glaring weakness or 2 glaring weaknesses that need to take the priority. And then the other things are mixed in based on needs, right? Like, there's probably a skill most people could identify, like muscle ups or bar muscle ups or double unders, that could use refinement. And I'd say, generally speaking, 1 or 2 skills per 12 weeks. So like, pick a skill program and then just follow a well-rounded training program around that targets your weaknesses. Some people still need to get stronger. Like we said in our last podcast, strength isn't as important, but there are people that are on the bubble that got hammered by workout 1 and got hammered by workout 4. So if you're one of those people, I'd say right now, strength is more important than the skills. There's probably other people that got crushed by the rope climbs. And it's like, all right, well, then like you should do rope climb skill work and develop this skill tighter and more polished. So it becomes more individualized, I think, at that point, and either getting a coach, or if you're in the program, reaching out to Mia or Brandon or Mike, or getting some advice as to, hey, when we go into this off-season cycle, what's a good structure for me relative to where I finished? And then that can kind of give you the answer to where to work.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you're unsure, reach out to us. We're happy to help. All right. Chris?
How you doing?